What exactly is anxiety?
It's an issue that all humans face. That's because everyone has anxiety. So not only people that suffer from anxiety have anxiety, we all carry, you would say, in biology and in psychology, we call it the disposition to, in one way or another, experience anxiety. Why? Because it allows us to be a little bit more conservative in life. So, if you're standing on the edge of that rock and want to jump into the ocean, you get anxiety. You start thinking, shouldn't I? And then you see other people do it, and once you jump in, you want to do it again because you've convinced your brain that it's okay, right? So, like that, there's other issues in life that we all react to, and the brain loves being conservative. Unless it's about survival, it doesn't really care about fun or about other things. So it's just interested in keeping us safe. So anything that may cause us traumas or may cause us to experience something, maybe even danger, the brain immediately releases anxiety for us to be aware and to be a little bit more conservative with our action. That's why everyone has it. Now, the difference is the threshold when that anxiety is released. So for some people, it's released when it shouldn't be, and for most people, it's released only at times of necessity.
So it's a good thing. So it's something we should have, so it keeps us safe. That's what I'm hearing.
Correct. All humans have it. Actually, all mammals have it, and a lot of other animals as well. So if you watch a documentary on animals, they're always anxious because it's life or death situation. They still need to go and drink water, but they're anxious that there might be a predator. So the wind rushes through the bush and they think it may be a lion. Most of the time it's not, but it could be. So those that take that calculated risk, that continue living, but not overly conservative, but not overly adventurous, and they're the ones that survive. And that's how, if you like, natural selection works, as well as other things like being fast, being strong. The amount of risk we take and the way we can conquer that anxiety enough to continue. So that's roughly how it works in biology and in psychology.
Okay, Carlos, why then does anxiety seem to arrive when there isn't any obvious danger present?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and that's because we also form habits in our life, and we live in a civilized society, right? So a lot of the times we still fear things that may not worry us too much. Like it may have, for example, to our ancestors, whether it's a predator or it may be a storm or these other things. Living in a civilized society, most of us live in a safe dwelling. If someone's harassing you, you call the police. You don't have to fight them off. You don't have to be the smartest nor the strongest to survive. So, but anxiety still lingers because evolution is very, very slow and technology is very, very quick. So our cities have evolved far quicker than us being able to adapt to this civilized society where anxiety is not needed as much, apart from when we take unnecessary risks. Like, for example, fun things like jumping out of a plane with a parachute or jumping off a cliff or asking someone to dance. You get anxiety because it's a risk that may or may not come off. But the times that when we don't, when we do feel anxiety and nothing else is happening, well, that's a clinical issue, and those people usually have what we call generalized anxiety disorder, and it requires treatment and possibly medication.
Well, why do people end up with that? I have heard of that, GAD, that GAD. Why do they end up with it? Is it something they're born with, or does it develop, or is it because they've had lots of stress? Well, why does it even happen?
Research shows that it can be passed on genetically. So if we have parents or one of our parents that suffers from anxiety, it's much more likely that one of their children, or all of them, or some of them may have that. Now, again, it's only a disposition, right? If you like, a potential. Okay. It's just like being able to to run quick, and that's why you have athletes. Sometimes their children are good athletes too. One is because of the genetics, but two, and more importantly, is because they've been exposed to that sport or the violin or whatever it may be that the family is quite actually unique at. So, but they do have the potential, the disposition to develop that gift, or in this case, something like anxiety or other psychological disorders. So it's a combination of both. It not necessarily it has to develop. It will develop. Not necessarily someone that has two parents with GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, doesn't necessarily develop it, but definitely has a higher chance to if the situation is accommodates for that.
Well, we often hear that anxiety causes physical symptoms such as having a tight chest, nausea, dizziness, fatigue, even sort of problems breathing. Why, when it's a psychological thing, why does it manifest in so many people with these physical symptoms?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Shortness of breath. And it could develop even to what we call panic attacks, which is kind of like a great deal of anxiety all at once, and usually comes, as we said, out of nowhere. It can be someone might be having a really good day, watching a nice movie, suddenly develops a panic attack. It's one of the things in clinical psychology we find very difficult to treat because there aren't evident triggers. So we need to look into some of the habits that person's involved in, their diet, how much exercise they're doing, and of course, how well or not that they are sleeping. So all these things may cause or be a trigger towards that. So the physical symptoms are definitely connected with the psychological. It's psychological, but it's also biological. That's why in psychology we also look at the physical symptoms because they go hand in hand. Actually, the best way to treat something like anxiety in psychology is focusing on the physical symptoms, because once that happens, then the rest will follow. So you focus on your breathing, you focus on trying to get your heart rate back to normal, you focus on maybe getting out on your body, like getting out for a walk, and then, of course, the psychological part, which is the positive thinking and understanding and accepting that, hang on, this is just anxiety, this is what my brain does, it's for a reason that I don't understand at the moment, but I will manage it, and that's the best way to attack that.
Carlos, do you think Australians are becoming more anxious, or are we just becoming better at recognising it?
I think we're becoming better at recognising anxiety. Has been around, like I said, most animals, definitely all mammals, and all humans, and regardless of culture and so forth, suffer from some form of anxiety. Why? Because it's part of our makeup. It's allowed us to survive in the world, and now we live in civilized society, and we have a form of anxiety, but for other things, it may be an accumulation of stress because of financial issues, it may be relationship issues, not necessarily that there may be a predator or something like that, but the anxiety is exactly the same. Actually, I always say to people that the brain doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter whether you might be upset because someone overtook you in what you feel is a wrong manner, or that a lion is running after you. The burst of anxiety is exactly the same. The brain just gives it to us, and that's why we see a lot of the time that people overreact, and we see people doing things that are maybe out of character, but definitely an overreaction to that event, because the anxiety for the brain is pretty much the same. It just releases it for us to either fight or flee that situation.
You see, you've touched on it just then, and it's not something that I was aware of, but can anxiety sometimes present as anger, irritability, or even frustration rather than fear and panic?
Well, that could be the next reaction as well, of course, because anxiety, it's either one of the two things. We're going to react to the environment. We're going to either run away really quick, or we're going to stay there and fight. And when you stay there and fight, possibly a certain amount of aggression may be necessary. And so, and again, because we live in a civilized society, we're adapting to a different form. So what we of confronting these situations. So what we try to teach people is, in that situation, the best thing is to remain as calm as possible, to probably try to control your anxiety and not take that extra step to aggression, unless it's, there may be a situation in our lives that presents itself that we have to fight our way out of, but it's very, very rare. Most of the time, the best approach is to remain calm and to make sure that we can communicate clearly so we can have a safe journey, so to speak.
Carlos, let's tap into a few things that might help people. I just thought, when anxious thoughts start spiralling, what is the best thing that someone can do in that moment?
In that moment, the best thing you can do is to stop what you're doing and say to yourself out loud in that calm voice, this is just anxiety. Point it out to your brain. Show your brain that you know what it's doing. I always say to people, pretend your brain is a separate entity from you, and try to talk to yourself and say, just stop. You say you're cutting potatoes in the kitchen. Suddenly you get this anxiety because something's happened. You put the things down. You stop in a calm manner, because remember, the brain's reading our behaviour and how we talk. So if we're calm, it's going to go with that. That's how method actors do it before a scene. If it's a scene where they're angry, they talk to themselves angry, they pump themselves up. If they're in love, they think of someone that they may have loved and so forth. So the brain can be easily convinced. So what we do is say, this is just anxiety. I'm going to control it. So you take full control of the situation. So you've identified it. Then the next thing you do is you walk out to a different room, preferably outside. And you can either sit in a nice comfortable chair or stand nice and erect against the wall, and just try to breathe 3 seconds in. So you count 1, 2, 3. Exhale 3 seconds out. So 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Once you get a hang of that, which is about 30 seconds, you go to 4, and you do it for another 30 seconds, and you just allow your mind to focus on your breathing. Don't worry about trying to clear your mind, like people talk about in meditation. That's very, very difficult to do. It takes a lot of experience and training to do that. It actually causes more anxiety. That's why people say, when I try to meditate or try to relax, I get more anxious, because they're trying to empty their mind of thought, which is the opposite of what the brain's for. It's always thinking. So the best thing is to allow the thoughts to come in, but detach yourself emotionally from them and focus on the breathing. Once you do that, it only takes a minute. You may decide, okay, I feel good now, and just talk positive. We call it self-positive talk. Mm-hmm. Tell your brain what you want from it, identify it, change the room, preferably outside, and then continue doing what you're doing.
Okay, what about everyday habits are there things that we could do that can start to reduce anxiety over time? 100%.
Physical exercise. It's the best thing for anxiety. There's nothing that anyone can prescribe you anyway that is better than doing exercise. Yes, walk. And when I say exercise, you don't need to train to go to the Olympics. All you need to do is walk 20 minutes a day. But the most important thing is be consistent. Doesn't matter what you do in life, whether it's saving money, writing a book, doing exercise, whatever it may be. Consistency is what gets us the success. So if you do it once a week for 2 hours at the gym, that's great. But the best thing is to do every day, because more than 24 hours, then that habit doesn't become a habit. You need to do something every 24 hours. So invest 20 minutes a day, go for a walk. You can increase the intensity of that walk, but just take 20 minutes. And then, of course, a good bed routine and wake-up routine. So try to keep it as diligent as possible certain days of the week, usually between Sunday and Thursday night. Then Friday, Saturday night, give yourself maybe a bit more leeway. If you do those two things, that's a great start.
When should we start to think, okay, maybe I need to talk to somebody else about this and get some medical help? Are there any warning signs that we should be looking out for?
Yes, if we are fearful of doing things because it causes us what we call anxiety now, but you may just feel that it just causes you worry or whatever it may be, however you want to name it. If you're stopping doing things, whether it's going to social events or maybe asking someone out or maybe applying for a job or whatever it may be, if you realise, hang on, I haven't done this purely because I was worried about the result and that caused me anxiety, then if you find that there is a pattern, I would definitely start talking to someone. Start with your friends. Start with someone that doesn't necessarily need to be a psychologist, but someone that you can just talk to, and then from there, maybe talk to your GP and see what they think. Usually GPs are very good at referring to the right person, whether it's a psychologist, a counsellor, it may be a psychiatrist, or they themselves may be able to treat the person. But just getting some feedback is good straight away from someone, anyone. Don't wait to see a professional. Start talking to your friends, your family about it.